Introduce Hector and then.
Yeah. Okay, it's lagging.
Well, my dad. It's too slow.
Give it a moment. There we go. Oh. Why is it doing this? Good morning, everyone. If everybody wants to take a seat, we're going to begin our session. Welcome to the last day of International Youth Conference 9. We're so happy to be here, so happy to have an audience here in Los Angeles on our last day today. We are going to begin with a series of keynote presentations. I would like to invite Mr. Hector Palencia to the stage for a keynote on the installation of hope and resilience.
Can you all hear me? Okay, good. Thank you. Oh, the PowerPoint portion. Perfect. Thank you very much. So I only have 15 minutes, so I hope to keep it short, and it'll be painless for you all watching. So hopefully that's the case. This is a huge topic. So my name is Hector Palencia. Before I guess go any further, I'm a practicum education faculty here at UCLA. I'm also the co-director for the school social work program here at UCLA, so I'm very proud of. So we're going to talk about resiliency despite one's past. And the reason why resiliency is so important to me, because since I work so closely within the education system, it's a topic that we discuss quite a bit, right? But within 15 minutes, I'm going to give you the very fast version of it because there's no way to go in depth, right? So let us start. So what is resiliency, right? And how is it defined, or what is resiliency defined as? So the APA says resiliency is a process and outcome of successful adapting to difficulty or challenging life experiences, especially through mental, emotional, behavioral flexibility, adjustment to the external and internal demands that we have. Great, right? So what does that mean? Resiliency is a good thing, right? Resiliency and predictors. So resiliency actually gives us a lot of academic, not just academic predictors of a child's overall outcome, depending on how they're going to do in life. For example, I'll give you an example. If you were to have two children coming to school at the same time, and one child might have had, let's say, an inclination, academic inclination. They understand things quicker, they're able to comprehend things faster, right? And so they start school and they start elevated in comparison to the other children, right? What happens is that if that child has not developed how to deal with negative circumstances in their life, in other words, how to self-regulate their emotions, how to deal with these difficult things that will happen in life, that child, the other child, will at some point catch up and then exceed, simply because they won't give up. So the act of not giving up, the act of continuing to push forward despite different difficulties and circumstances will have an overall positive outcome, okay? That's what the research tells us. Resiliency is a good thing, okay? So simply put, resiliency equals good. Lacking resiliency, not good, right? It helps also in the fact of how we interact with other people and how we feel about ourselves. Okay, so this is kind of a general view of resiliency. So this is kind of overall general view. Now, when we talk about resiliency, usually in academic circles or in these type of talks like we're doing right now, we talk about it like this, right? Everyone knows this image. For those of you probably watching may not know. So this is image of Rocky Balboa, right? And he's out there fighting the fight, right? And he says, and this is his famous quote, it says, "The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place. And I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you down to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it," right? You, me, or nobody's going to hit you as hard as life, but it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you get hit and keep moving forward. How much you take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Is this sound advice? Yes. Is this good advice? Possibly, right? And this is the motivation part of resiliency, right? Push forward, move forward, keep on pushing, right? Because eventually good things will happen, right? If you just try harder, good things will happen, right? And so when people normally talk about resiliency, this is how they talk about it: motivation. If you're just motivated, if you just try harder, right, things will happen, right? That's not how I'm going to talk about it today. I'm going to look at it from a different angle and maybe talk about it a little bit differently. Because what happens is when we take this approach, we're making assumptions. We're making some very general and important assumptions about resiliency and what it means. The first assumption is resiliency is only an internal process, meaning all you have to do is believe. If you believe in yourself, then you will work harder. If I tell you to work harder, you could find it in yourself to be better, right? It's just internal. That's the huge assumption, that resiliency is something you gain from yourself. Now, what research says is the opposite. Actually, not the opposite, but research says adds to this, that even though there's an internal component, resiliency has to start from the external world. Let me say this again, that although resiliency is an internal component, it has to start from the external world. You have to be able to build on something. If there is nothing there to build on, how will you build? How will you build? The other assumption is like if you only do this, if you were only to do that, you're so close. Just work at it, try harder. There's a video I show my students that has to do with special education and stuff like that. And the person who's running the video does this, I think it's a great technique. He talks about the issue of motivation. That if motivation was just the issue or the reason why we do things or don't things, that'd be simple, right? He said, let me give you this example. He gets a person from the audience and he says, here I have $100. Here I have $100. I want you to answer this question for me. He gives them a picture that's kind of obscure. And he says, tell me what's in that picture. The person doesn't know, right? He says, I will give you this $100 if you tell me what's in that picture. He says, I'm going to count it down. 5 seconds, 4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. Guess what? The person still can't do it. He said, I'll give you 5 more seconds. The person tries again. Guess what? They still can't do it. He said, were you motivated? Absolutely. You wanted that money, right? But you still couldn't do it. So it's not about motivation. It's not about motivation. We could only go as fast as we're already capable of doing. Okay? We can't out-motivate somebody to do something. The other assumption is ability equals results. If you just have the ability, the results will happen, right? That's a huge assumption. That simply because you run faster, does that mean you're going to be a state champion? No. It means you run fast. I'll give you an example. Let's imagine that you were a child and you were born or you're living outside in the jungle, okay? And it gets really cold at night. One day, a plane comes by and drops some fuel, some petrol, and some matches. You've never seen matches in your life. You've never seen fuel, gasoline in your life. Guess what's going to happen? That child will still remain cold for the rest of their life. Even though the access is there, even though they have the ability. But if they don't know how to use those things, guess what? They'll never use them because they don't know. So with resiliency, we assume because a person is naturally inclined to be intelligent, that somehow that's enough. But it's not. It's much more complicated than that. I want you to tell me something about these images. What do you see here? Could somebody, I'll throw it out. Somebody, what do you see here? Tell me about these images here. What is this one right here? It's a little flower, right? What's so significant about this flower? Why is this flower special, let's say, if you were to say that? Sorry? The dirt surrounding it, okay. What else? It's the center of the picture, right? Does it seem like this flower has blossomed in an unnatural place or location, right? That the fact that this flower has been able to come up from this very difficult circumstance, you would appreciate that. You look at this flower. Out of the external world, it still came up. What are these things, which look a little bit, like haystacks, but they're not? What do you think these are? They're plants. Somebody said that, right? What's wrong with these plants? They're dead. Okay. Why are they dead? Say it again, please. Could you say that louder, please? There's no water. Would I look at these plants and say, stupid plant, why weren't you able to grow? Would I tell that to a plant? Because if it's dried up, because it has no water? Probably not. So what does the plant need to survive? It needs water. It needs water. Why do we minimize responsibility and approaches? This is how we deal with human beings. We value and honor the kids that are able to do this. And we look at these kids and say, that's your fault. That's your fault. Everything was given to you. You had all the answers. Everything was provided to you. And the fact that you weren't able to do this, what's wrong with you? And not only do they hear this from the external world, guess what children end up doing? What do? They believe it. And if you believe it, you what? You act it. Children, people, especially children, will live up to your expectations no matter how low you set the bar. So I'll say this again. Children will live up to your expectations no matter how low you set the bar. And if children are easily disposed because they don't produce in the same way that you're expected to produce, what happens to them? They're pushed aside. They're marginalized. They're demonized, right? And that's what we do. And why do we do that? Well, simply for some of us, it's a way to minimize our own responsibility to the person in front of us, to the child that needs help, to the person who needs support. So it's much easier to blame them than it is for us to take some type of action, right? So much easier to say, what's wrong with you? Why can't you be like this other plant? So we use these strategies and we dehumanize them, right? And we blame them. Look at some of the policies that we have. Why is it the incarceration system continues to build, right? Because we have a nice place for them, right? When they cannot respond or react or do the same things that everybody else does. We have a place for them. And we do is we keep on pushing them out into the margins until what? Until they just vanish. And then the whole time we just blame them, right? It's their fault. We praise one and blame the other. And here's the kicker for me. This is the kicker, is that we look at this and we say, why can't you be like this? Why can't you be like this? And what's one of the things that we're really missing in this conversation here? Just even within this picture, what is it the one thing we're missing? Why is it that this was able to grow and this one wasn't able to grow? Why? Can somebody tell me? Why did the environment's different, right? That even if this flower grew out of a harsh environment, it still had to have a proper environment to grow. That means it still had to get water. Some way, shape, or form, it had to have water. It had to have nourishment. The soil had to be just right for it to grow, right? We demonize, we push children away, we blame them when they don't have the environment to grow. We provide a system that doesn't allow them to grow, and then we blame them for not growing. What should we do instead? Provide water, support. How do we support these children? How do we support? My grandmother, who was my nearest and dearest person, the person I loved immensely, she was a gardener, right? So I'm going to use a lot of plant imagery in this way. She'd say sometimes you have a plant, right? It has nice soil. You push water on it, guess what happens? Boom, shoots up, doesn't take much, grows. Sometimes you have a potted plant like the other ones before, you put water in it and it just sits on top. It sits on top, nothing happens. Nothing happens. So do I blame that plant? And I say, well, look, I tried. I watered you once. That was enough. The rest is up to you. No, what do we do for it to grow? We provide more water because it needs more. And for some of us, for some of the children that we work with, that's what they really actually need is more. Because they don't have it elsewhere. They don't have a home that they could go to, somebody that loving and cares for them. When I used to do a lot of work in the schools, I used to stand in front of the door as students came in to see me. Let's say we were running a group, I shake their hand and I'd say, hey, how's it going, Mike? Nice to meet you. I'm so happy to see you. They come in and it always caught me off guard that they'd look at me odd. Like, what am I doing? Months later, after we build a relationship, they tell me, you know, sir, you're the first adult in my life who told me they were happy to see me. These are the things that we push away and we think are not important. But for some children, some adolescents, it means the world, right? We heard them, so we just assume it's always heard. Not true. Everything is built on the relationship. Without relationship, it doesn't matter what you do, it won't work. You have to build on a relationship. No good outcomes will happen without a relationship. Any clinical practice, I'm a clinician, I'm a therapist, okay? I don't care what EBP you use, it's trash unless there's a relationship. When they've done actual meta-analysis of evidence-based programming, what they found is that the results were actually very significantly low when they isolated the intervention by itself. When they included a relationship, that's when the intervention took place. If you don't have a starting point, if kids don't believe you care about them, they're not going to listen, right? And if they don't believe you care about them, they're not going to care about themselves. And what we do in the work and what we should do in this overall work, when we talk about resiliency, is giving people time. That's actually the most special gift that we give anybody that exists is time. There is no gift greater than time. Even this 15 minutes now that I've been talking, you could want that time back, but you're not going to get it. As soon as it's gone, right? And when we give that to somebody, when we listen to them, when we sit with them, what we're doing is giving them something that we will never get back. Think about that. How do you spell love? You don't spell it, you feel it. Giving time is a present. Remember, people will forget what you told them, but never forget how you made them feel, right? I'll end with this. Mr. Rogers, for those who know Mr. Rogers, and some of you might not out there in another world, he did children's television. He received an Emmy, a Lifetime Emmy Award, and he gave this speech. So I'm going to kind of replicate very quickly what his speech was like and what he said. He said, I want you to think back. Think to yourself about a person or people in your life that made an impact. The people that are the reason why you are here, either living or passed on. He said, I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think about it. So I'm going to give you 10 seconds right now to think about it. All right? Don't worry, I'll keep the time. Go. What an honor it must be for those people to have known that they had an impact in your life, that they're the reason why you are here today. I'm going to take it a step further. What if they weren't here in your life? What would your life be like without them? What would your life have been like if they weren't here, if they weren't present with you, right? I think of my godparents, I think of my grandparents, I think of people that showed up for me despite the circumstances, right? And although it's great to tell them how much they meant to you and reach out and tell them, what impact they had in your life, the greatest gift you could give to them and the greatest way you could pay homage to those people is by giving it to somebody else. If you value them and you love them and you take what they give you, the gift that they give you, into consideration, pass it on to somebody else. Because in that gift, their memory continues long past after they're gone. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a good day.
Thank you very much, Hector, for that resilience speech. Now we'll be moving on to our next keynote speaker, but we're changing live streams so everyone can go to the keynote speech on Youth for Peace. One moment.